Good evening and welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm your host, Joshua Solomon. I am back from my secret mission, and with me, as always, is JP Marzullo. How you doing, JP?
Good. How are you?
My hair's a mess today.
So the secret place was in some warm weather, I know.
It was in some warm weather.
And then
I got a little bit of a suntan burn, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. No, things are good. Things are good. I'm glad you're back. It's tough filling in for you.
I'm not entirely glad to be back because it's cold up here.
It is cold. It is cold. I showed off my new shirt.
Yep. I got my new shirt too.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Cool.
What do you think?
Awesome, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fancy.
All right. As always, Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is sponsored by the Wilson Hill Pistol Club right here in Manchester, New Hampshire, the oldest sports shooting club in the state. It is at 1732 Lakeshore Road. The monthly meeting is the first Wednesday of every month at 7 p.m. and all are invited. If you want training, you go to wilsonhillpistol.org. And you can find our training schedule, you can find our location, you can find contact information for me and the rest of the board of directors. And you can also find and register for training. The next training is this Saturday, December 16th, the NRA Basic Pistol. So that's your basic first class, and it's the NRA version of your fundamentals class. And then on Wednesday, December 27th, and I assume it's on a Wednesday because it's, Christmas week and most people aren't working too hard, is the Safetia Fast Handgun class, which is the Safetia, the Second Amendment Foundation's version of the absolute basic pistol class. So you can go there to register as well. And, of course, both on Facebook, the Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades Facebook page, and the Wilson Hill Pistol Club website, you will find links to the brand new Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades merchandise store. So you can get Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades goods like the fancy shirts that JP and I are modeling today, and as well as Wilson Hill Pistol Club stuff. So, Sean, our guest, Sean Hopper, the son of the late, great Gary Hopper. How you doing, Sean?
I'm good.
Sean, we have a gift for you.
Aww.
Straight from, and it says it's a real place. It's a real place. The Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades Fulfillment Center in Fort Worth, Texas.
Whoa.
It should be from New Hampshire, but as Gary would say, if it's not from New Hampshire, it better be from Texas.
Yes.
And that is,
oh my God, that's
a
cool.
Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades hat.
That's so cool.
Well, that's only half of your gift. We got you a coffee cup as well, but we have some shipping issues, and that will arrive at some point.
That's awesome. Thank you.
But we thought you'd like to have a Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades hat.
I really do. This is cool.
So, anyway, so Sean, I don't want to dwell on the past too much, but this is your first appearance since Gary's passing, and it has been kind of a tradition around this time of year for you to come on and for us to have a talk about all kinds of things. Faith and religion and school and whatnot. And so I didn't want to stop that.
Sure.
And that's exactly what JP and I have been trying to do during the giving season, is we're bringing on the same types of guests that Gary always had on. And so I thank you for coming back. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the invite. It's fun. I was actually really looking forward to this. I was excited when you asked me, and yeah.
Well, so were we. So we're glad you're here.
So last time we spoke, you were still going through your schooling, but so I want to talk about a bunch of things. First off, how are you doing? How's the family doing? Since last year, we all had a rough time of it. I had a rough time of it. It was it was hard for me, and I'm sure it doesn't compare to what it was like for your family. It wasn't a long drawn out. I mean, it was what, a year and a half from diagnosis. And so there wasn't a lot of time, and so it was kind of hard on all of us who were trying to get things done. But some good things have happened since then, right? I mean, with you in particular, and with your family. So how have things been going?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, losing Dad was like the hardest, or one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. But it was, there's so much grace in pain, and there's so much grace in suffering. And so, like, the two big things, the biggest changes in my life were, and it's interesting, they both happened like right before Dad passed away. Like just before Dad passed away, I found a house, and you know, the market's been insane. So finding a house within my price range was not a simple thing, and it just sort of came to me. I wasn't really even looking, and so that happened, and that was a pretty big deal. And I kind of got his blessing, which was cool. And then more important than that was I met the woman who is now my fiance. And again, I kind of ran it by him. I was able to sort of run it by him before the end, and he gave me his blessing on that too, and she's awesome, and I'm really grateful for that. So those are the two big things, but...
Well, those are two big things to be congratulated about. I mean, that kind of brings us to, you know, adulthood. Not that you have.
Yeah.
But those are fabulous.
Yeah, it's pretty been. So, I mean, it's been a mixed year, I think, for the whole family. You know, the first year is always hard for people. You know, it's the first everything. It's the first
a lot of firsts.
Birthday without him, first Thanksgiving without him. We're about to have our first Christmas without him. You know, and so, but we're all walking through it. There's, like I said, God has been present, and there's been a peace, I think, in our family.
Well, that's good.
That's awesome.
That's good.
Mom's doing good. You know, it was hard on her for a little while, but she is doing well. She really is, and spiritually, she hasn't missed a beat. She went back to work, and that seems to be good for her. Have something to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say we missed him at the State House. Your dad sat like 2 rows behind me and constantly harassed me. Which he would do things like, so how are we going to vote on this? I said, you've been here a lot longer than I have. Why are you asking me? He says, well, I know you read everything. So I said, you don't? And then, and he would run down during just before the vote and do that. Or then he would do the Jeopardy tune when we had 30 seconds or 24 seconds to vote, and he would do that. And I'll tell you, there are a lot of state reps who remember that. And, you know, we're grateful that he was a friend of ours, and we got to enjoy him for a short time. So, you know, feel good about that, too. His legacy, and that's why... You know, we do the show. Josh was the person who actually pushed forward with it, asked me if I was interested. And initially I thought I was just going to get people to be on the show, and then he dragged me in here, and I've never left. So it's a lot of fun for me, but more importantly, the relationship that Josh had with your dad is really the driving force for us keeping this going, his legacy.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun on the show, and that was kind of the big reason why I like having you as a co-host, right? Is because Gary and I, we would play off each other, and it was a lot of fun. And hosting alone wasn't fun. I mean,
as I found out last week, it's
even when he was still with us but couldn't make it to the show, it was hard for me to do a show without him. And of course afterwards. It was even harder because I knew there wasn't going to be another one. So, you know, JP has helped quite a bit to kind of. I have someone to bounce things off. Right? It's just the way the show has always been.
I just don't have his quick wit.
It's never going to be the same because we're never going to have Gary's humor.
No, that's for sure. For sure.
I've tried a few times.
It's not working.
So. So, but yeah, so when we have you on the show, we like to talk about
Talk about your school.
your schooling. Like, so how's that going? You were writing a massive paper, I think, last time we spoke. How did that go? We got a kind of a preview of it.
So, well, this isn't the most fun news. I mean, my studies have continued, but schooling has not.
Okay.
When Dad got sick, it was, I kept up with the school for a little while, but it got to a point where he needed a lot of help.
Yeah.
And, I just needed to be there. And so I stayed with him, and then, after he passed, it was like, okay, I really should be spending time with the family, and then I got the house, and now the engagement, and
Life happened.
life happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of those things were just more important for me.
Sure.
But, I still study. I studied before I went to college, and I'll study after. I like to learn, and I like to study those kinds of materials. So my own studies have just kind of continued on, but just, in my own way without a GPA or anything.
Right.
I plan to go back at some point, just when the time is right. I talked to the college, and I think I have like 5 years or something before I even have to worry about it, as far as they'll just keep my credits and everything.
Yeah, you can do that online too, right? If you had to. But is that the way you did it?
That is how I've done the last. The first degree I got was in person, and then since then I've been online. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I think we were talking about proof, weren't we? Weren't we talking about proof of God and proof of existence and things like that? So I came across something, and you have to bear with me. I've got to pull it up.
You can see how well prepared
I
we
think
are.
it was last week, and it was a very interesting thing that took place this year. It was a world-renowned chemist. Come on, it was right at the time.
You have way too much on your phone.
I do. There it is. Origin of life. All right, so there is this chemist. His name is James Tour. And he's got like 3 PhDs. And his entire career is built around very specific chemistry relating to the origins of life. Peptides and things like that.
Yeah.
And he put out a challenge in August. He put out a challenge to 10 of the top researchers. Okay, so he issued a public challenge to 10 top origin of life researchers by name.
Sure.
The deal is, if any of them can answer just one of 5 questions, just one of 5 questions, if any one of the 5 questions could be answered, then he would take down everything that he put online and every comment he's ever made about any of them. Basically, he as a chemist has come to the conclusion that it is absolutely impossible. There are no statistical ways, there's no way that life can just magically come together and be created through chemistry. And he laid out these 5 questions, 5 chemistry questions that need to be answered. If any of them can be answered, then life can be made. And if they can't be answered, then it can't be. Well, he laid out this challenge. Answer these 5 questions. Answer one of them.
What's the name again?
His name is James Tour.
How do you spell tour?
T-O-U-R.
Just
Like a rock tour.
Like a rock tour.
So the
right.
5 questions were concerning polypeptides, polynucleotides, polysaccharides, information, i.e. DNA, and how, because you can create DNA, but then you still have to have it organized
Right.
in this manner that creates life. and then the assembly of a living cell, creating a cell that is a living cell. And the rules were, it doesn't matter which question you answer. You can assume that the other 4 are answered. If you can answer this one with the assumption that then I'll take it down. I will say that I was wrong. And so he laid out the challenge, and he said, not only that, the judge of whether or not the answer is correct or can be correct, you can pick from amongst yourselves, the 10 of you. And he named them all out, and I've got all their names here, but I'm not gonna.
I'm gonna assume that they are people that have like a more secular mindset or something. Big wigs in the field, at least.
These are people who are teaching evolution in colleges. These are people who have multiple PhDs. Anyway, so he laid out the challenge.
When did he do this?
He did this in August.
Okay.
And it was a 60-day challenge. Just come back and answer one of these 5 questions.
I'm so curious what the 2 to 10 were.
And the deal is that he noticed that all 10 of these people were teaching that we know the origins of life. We know that, these proteins and whatnot came together and created life. And they are teaching this to the next generation of scientists. And so there's this assumption. We have an entire generation of scientists who just assume that these chemical reactions can take place. And that from there, we go along with, this is how life evolved and the theory of evolution and all of that stuff. And what he's saying is, we don't have this answer. And if you teach scientists that we do have the answers to these 5 questions, then no one will ever try to solve them. We'll never know. He's not saying one way or the other. He's just saying, if you can't answer this question, why aren't you teaching your students that these are not answered questions? Why aren't you teaching your students that we don't know the origins of life? And, of course, he's an unapologetic Christian, right? Sure. So, but anyway, I found it interesting. I read 3 or 4 articles about the subject, but not one of the 10 even responded.
I bet they didn't.
And he promised, hey, if anybody can answer a question, and I won't even be the judge, just answer these chemical questions that you are teaching your students that are solved. Answer these questions for me, and I'll take down, because he's been criticized left and right,
of course he has,
about his religion and his scientific papers, indicating that these are not solved problems. And complete silence. I thought that was a very telling thing, and this happened. Well, like I said, the challenge was laid down in August, and it's been complete silence. So. Anyway, it was something that came to my mind. We were talking about proofs, and we were talking about things like that earlier.
Yeah, and I think so it is telling, and what it says to me about their lack of response. Their lack of response is really the thing that's most interesting to me. And so what I've done since I haven't been in school, I was thinking about this in the past week or 2 when I was planning to come here, is I've spent probably a year just listening to the biggest, most prolific, angriest atheists I could find. And I've been eating up their lectures. And I'm, everybody from the old school stuff like Nietzsche to like newer stuff like Hitchens and Dawkins. And what I found is that the reasons for disbelief, I find, are they're not. It's not about logic. It likes on both sides. People like to present these arguments as though it were all about logic. And when I listen to like one of the most prolific recent sort of anti-apologists or pro-atheism, anti-religion, particularly Catholicism, but religion in general, guys out there was Hitchens. And he's passed away now, but when you listen to him, it's under the guise of this intellectual statement, but really it's a guy who's hurt. It's a guy who's emotionally driven and ego-driven, right? And there's a whole lot of things that go into these this worldview. My point is, the silence when and I've heard it's not this tour guy sounds cool. I don't know him, but when people bring forth those questions to these loud, very visible atheists, it's very rare that any of the questions I find get answered. Sometimes people will try, especially younger people. But
I think the younger folks they gravitate towards these ideas because these ideas allow them to do things that religion doesn't allow you to do, right? It gives you this, well, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to answer to anybody. And there's a certain lack of moral code in that. And that, if I take myself out of that belief system, then I have a different set of rules that I can play by.
Sure.
And they like that set of rules. They like that they can do whatever they want. It's self-serving.
Sure.
And that's really the downfall of civilization is when you get into this self-serving. It's what was it? Dr. Fauci gave an interview this week. I don't know if you saw that. And somebody asked him if he's religious. He said, "Well, I'm a Catholic. Well, do you practice?" "Well, I don't have to practice because my set of morals is good enough."
Yeah.
Right. And isn't that's exactly it? Is, oh, I don't have to do that because I know better. It's almost as though I'm better than God.
Sure.
I know I'm better than all those people who go to church. And that's what's maddening about these folks.
So my pastor is 36 years old, and he has a show called Point of View. And you might his name is Josh Barnes.
Okay.
And you might want to look him up on YouTube. And he has several times debated with atheists.
Sure.
And it's quite interesting, his approach to it. But he's someone, for younger people, he's perfect because he's of their age. He's a millennial.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And he serves God in a lot of ways, like coming up and splitting wood for me and cutting my lawn. And I tried to thank him. He said, "I'm serving God by being here."
Yeah.
And but he has very, very strong discussions with a couple of atheists, as well as a bunch of other topics. It's mostly political kinds of things. But to your point, you've listened to several of these people. I don't recall the person he had on last time, but somebody that's kind of a famous atheist, if that's. And one of the things you brought up is it's all about they think their morals and their thought process exceeds God's in a way.
They do.
So, yeah, I found that interesting.
I will say, though, when you talk to people... So when you talk to people or listen to people who are professing an anti-religious view, because there's a distinction, too, between just being an atheist and being sort of anti-religious. And really it's the people that are more anti-religious that I think are difficult for Christians in this country or for any religious people. And so if you say that it's about you want your own sets of morals, most of them will say that it's a straw man. They'll say that that's not why and that they did it for this reason or that reason or logical reasons. But then I think when pressed about, okay, so these people sort of anti-evangelize, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm evangelizing, right, like if I'm bringing up Christ to someone or talking about God, my reason is I truly believe in that hope and I want them to share that hope with me, okay?
Sure.
And so so the question I've often had is to anybody who's pushing atheism, not just believing it quietly at home, but pushing it, is what's your motivation? And then ironically enough, if you ask them, most of them will say that it was freeing. And the reason it was freeing is because they were no longer tied
Exactly.
to those morals. They could have sex with whoever they want. I mean, that's a big one, right? They could have sex with whoever they want. They could kind of do whatever. They could talk however they want. They didn't have to worry about Sunday mornings, et cetera, et cetera. You know, they could focus on money more, or whatever their personal motivations were.
Sure.
And just very often it's a lack of guilt is what they'll say, and they're trying to free people.
They won't say it in those so many words, but that's exactly what it is.
Sometimes they do say it in so many words.
Yeah.
When you ask them about what their motivations are, they will often talk about this idea of freedom. Yeah, maybe not sometimes about the morals, but in general, just this idea of this freedom from sort of bondage. A lot of them will view Christianity or religion as being in bondage to this higher power, and now you get to make your own destiny, and how freeing is that? And that's sort of the motivation that they say they have.
I mean, that's what free will was given to us for. You know, it's to test your faith. It's to test, you know, your morals. I saw, it was actually a comedian recently. Said he had a conversation with an atheist. And they were talking about the origins of life. They were talking about, why don't you believe in God? And the answers were, well, you're talking about some magic being that created life out of nothing. And so then the question is, okay, well, where do you think life came from? Oh, it was, you know, pool of chemicals. Yeah, but where did that pool? Oh, nothing. So that nothing turning into life is pretty darn magical for somebody who doesn't believe in a God, right? I mean, that's magical in itself.
Sure.
And then we talk about, well, where do you go when you die? Oh, in nothingness. So you come from nothing, and then you die, and you go back into your Creator. You're a Christian.
Yeah.
You just described it.
Yeah, I've actually seen that guy. That's a good bit. Yeah, my friend sent me that link. That was awesome.
So, yes. So,
But as far as what was the last thing you said? No, that's escaping me. In that way, I am much like my father.
you do have a lot of your father's personality in you. So we just need to bring the humor out. We need to bring that humor out. So what else has been going on? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
I don't have anything else thought out or planned.
Well.
Like I said, I did have this thing kind of prepared, sort of, but it's more just about what I was already talking about.
Okay.
And but I don't know if there's something else you wanted to talk about.
No. If there's something there, I mean, there's all kinds of other news stories that we would normally talk about. I just want to briefly say that I'm proud of our first responders. You know, I don't know that we talked about the shooting in Maine on the show. I don't think we did.
Nope.
But that shooting occurred in the next town over from where your nephew Scotty, Gary's grandson, is a firefighter. And I reached out, and we found out that although Scotty didn't respond, he was on duty at the firehouse. He was holding down the firehouse in case something else happened that night. So it's nice to see that he's safe, but it's also nice to see that he's starting on his career as a first responder. It's fitting for your family that you're in these types of roles from Gary. So.
Yeah, the kids are both doing good. Scotty's entering into the into his career path with the firefighters, which he's been talking about for a while, and it seems to be going really, really well. He actually got a job offer making pretty good money, and he turned it down to stay in school. And then my other nephew Damon, who's been on the show since he was a little one, is gone back to school. He's working and he's in school and he's going to school for addiction counseling. So it's kind of cool too because he's going through the same program I went through, and so he's like has some of the same professors that I had and stuff. So it's kind of neat.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
So is Damon, is he the football player?
No, that's Scotty.
That's Scotty.
Yes.
That's Scotty.
Scotty, when I first met him, he was tiny, but he turned into a football player.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
I was there one day when he
which makes a really good firefighter.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't he? He played football at where? Central? No, not West.
West,
West,
right?
yeah. Yep.
And he was taking, if I can remember this now, he was taking some courses with the fire department in Manchester, or was
At the tech.
Yeah,
at the tech school, right?
Tech school is where he was taking, but now he's moved on to college in Maine, which is why
Okay.
he's up there.
Because I remember when your mom was trying to give him a new pair of shoes because he needed boots that were special kind of boots.
Oh, jeez.
And he had like a 15 shoe or something. She went nuts trying to find him. She finally did, I remember. But yeah, I met him several times. So he's up in Maine now?
He is.
That's great.
Yeah, he's doing well there. Seemed a little homesick at first, but I suppose
sure.
that's to be expected. And yeah, he's doing really good. He's doing really good. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So will you all get together for Christmas, or what are your plans?
Yeah, we get together. He's up more than I expected, actually. He's up, twice a month, just about. So he was here Thanksgiving, and he'll
Good.
be here Christmas. And
Nice.
Yeah. Yep.
That's cool.
Good. All right, so let's talk about some absurd things taking place.
I know Gary's really good about talking about absurd things, so I'm sure he'll feed us this information right now.
So, one thing that I really like studies like this, especially when they come out from respected places. So, Gallup study. All right, and all we have to do is read the headline to know. Gallup study: teenagers more likely to be mentally healthy if their parents are conservative. What a shock! What a shock!
Yeah, shocking.
Right, and of course it comes from Gallup, which does all the polling and all of the
Sure.
the research, and so you can't say that's not an authoritative source. I love stories like that. Another absurdity, like we've been harping on this. I mean, heck, Gary and I harped on it years ago, and it's about the border. Mexico detains Iranians being monitored by the FBI. So we got a group of Iranians trying to come through the border in Mexico, and Mexico nabs them. Basically, the FBI warned the Mexican authorities, don't you dare let them near the border. 5 Iranians were detained along with their Haitian driver, who was acting as their guide on a highway between Baja California and the border cities of Tijuana. How long is this going to go on before somebody realizes, or before Democrats start sounding the alarm? Because it's going to affect them.
So what do you think about this vote coming up that they want to give more money to the Ukrainians, some more money to Israel, and the Republicans
Are they going to be allowed to vote on it? Because I thought Biden just gave them $20 million today.
$220 million.
$220 million. Well, I was low.
But they weren't going to move on it. The Republicans weren't going to move on it unless he closed the border. That was their negotiating tool.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like that matters. But of course, he's been on TV saying it's all the Republicans' fault, and if we lose Ukraine, it's on the Republicans because we didn't support them when they needed it. I can't believe that it, and I don't mean to, this really bugs the heck out of me, that we just open up the borders and let all of these people in, and we're going to have issues. There's no question about it. We're already having problems, and yet we have a president and his staff, Mayorkas, who do absolutely nothing and say, oh yeah, the border's closed. Really? I've never seen it closed. I don't think most people have. It's very frustrating for the future, for young people that this is happening because it's put a extra amount of stress on our hospitals, on the system for food, for living quarters, can you imagine living on the border right now and people are living on the streets and
Yeah.
They're taking over hotels,
There are
kids'
farmers.
soccer fields to put tent cities in.
Most of the
maddening.
most of the border along Texas and
Arizona.
Arizona.
Yep.
Most of those I mean, there's cities, right? There's
Yeah.
several cities there, but in between the cities, the majority of that border is all farmland.
Right. And
There's desert and farmland,
Right.
and so the property that's being rampaged and
It's the farmland.
It's the farmland. It's the farmers have literally thousands of illegals camping on
Yep.
their land as
Yep.
they cross the border,
Yep.
and the farmer will get up in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, and there'll be a couple of hundred people running through his fields, running across the street.
Yeah.
That's not just an issue for the country as a whole, but that's a safety issue for the people who live there.
Absolutely.
And it's very telling that as much as they say, "Oh, the border's closed. Oh, it's not a big deal. Oh, we need them because we need them for Democrat votes and whatnot." I mean, there's a multitude of reasons that the liberals will come up with to say that it's racist to shut the border down. But and when I say liberals, I mean the media, and I mean liberals, and I mean rhinos.
Yep.
But it's very telling. What was it, 2-3 weeks ago now, we had that incident at the Canadian border in Niagara Falls.
Oh, right.
Now, that had nothing to do with illegal immigrants. That had to do with a stuck accelerator on a
On a
car,
car. Yep.
right? But because it happened at a border checkpoint, that was very telling because the media, the liberal media, immediately thought that this was a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
Even though the car came from within the U.S. border, they immediately went to that.
Yep.
Right, and that was all stations. None of the stations held back, and the reason that it was live for hours until they said, until they figured out, until
Right.
they got the footage, until they realized that this was, an unfortunate incident of a couple in a car with a stuck accelerator. But what was telling about that was that even the liberal media knows deep down that when something happens, it's going to be an illegal alien issue,
Yeah.
right? That's going to be their go-to. It was their go-to. So that one, it's incredible that we're allowing that to happen.
And then today, I guess, Hunter Biden spoke, and, he was supposed to be doing it in private.
He's in contempt of
Congress. Right. And yet he went out and made these statements to the media, and, he's the innocent one. He's the oppressed, not the oppressor. So,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it all leans to that.
It's all gaslighting. Everything that we hear from all sides is all gaslighting. He said it 1,000,000 times. He says, every time a conservative is accused of something, it's because the accuser is already doing it themselves.
Yeah.
It
I
really
agree.
is. And one of those things is racism. And everybody knows Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston.
Yep.
The mayor of Boston, she's a woman of color herself. She sent out an email invitation today or last night. I don't know if you heard about this.
I haven't.
The email invitation was to a Christmas party for all elected persons of color. So it was a black-only Christmas party. Mm-hmm. She accidentally sent the email to all of her staff.
But nothing.
And then had to retract it. And basically say, if you're white, you can't come to my Christmas party. And they say they don't have anything to apologize for.
Well, it's just like these presidents of colleges.
The Penn State College.
The Penn State
The
did the right
anti-Semitic.
thing. They got rid
Oh,
of that
my
one.
Lord.
But Harvard, they're 500.
Harvard is completely
500
unapologetic.
Yeah, 500 professors are supporting their president. I mean, what are these kids being taught? And it didn't just start now. This has been going on for years.
Yep.
But it's been subtle, brainwashing of
Right.
this. And the thing that bothered me the most is I would really like to see more Jewish people step up and say something. We've had some, but the Israelis are being blamed for this now. I mean, it's sad, and I will say this: it's sad that any children are getting killed, whether they be Israeli or Palestinians or anything. But it's sad. But that's part of war, and Hamas is the one that brought this on, and yet the media makes it look like it's really Israel's fault.
Yep.
That's maddening. Think of our own country, and they're asking for a ceasefire. All of these people are asking, and now Biden's doing that. But here's something: do you think how would we react after 9/11 if some random country, came in and said, "You need to just stop now, stop going after these people"? That's wrong. I'm sorry, it's wrong.
It is absolute absurdity. Those 500 professors, or however many professors,
there were.
professed support for the president of Harvard.
Yep.
Right. So that took place within the last day or so.
Yeah.
Today, I'm seeing CEOs of Fortune 500 companies saying, "That's it. We're not hiring Harvard grads ever again."
Yeah, and I think that's great. That's their position they can take, and it's just like the donors saying, if you don't come out publicly and stop supporting the Palestinian movement that's going on, we will hold back, our donations to you. One fellow was like $1.2 million or something. He says, "I'm done with you. I'm done with you. You either straighten out the university or that's done." And it's all based on money.
Go broke, and it's
Right.
going to come to a head.
Well.
So there was a protest yesterday or the day before that shut down one of the bridges into Manhattan.
Oh, yeah.
It was a Queers for Palestine.
Jeez.
Are you kidding me? Queers for Palestine. That's their name. I'm not like saying anything disparaging. That's the name of their group. Do they understand that they can't walk down the streets of Gaza without being thrown off a building?
Right, or killed or shot.
I mean, how that's like, one commenter was like, well, that's like having penguins for orcas, right? The orca doesn't care if you are,
I love that. I'm stealing that.
And then there was a protest in Los Angeles today. Shut down the highways in Los Angeles, and they were demanding a ceasefire in Gaza, like you said, demanding it. Even if the United States government took notice and said, "Okay, you protesters, we're going to ask Israel to have a ceasefire," we're back to that same argument.
Yep.
Who are we to tell them what to do?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, it's getting. It's starting to look like Revelations to me.
The IDF is considered the most moral military force that has ever existed because they do stop, they do wait, and they do warn.
Yeah, well, they did. They tried to get all the people who had nothing to do with, all the Palestinians who aren't in favor of Hamas out of the country, but Hamas was killing them on the way out.
And they have been pausing fighting specifically to open corridors for people to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, you don't want to be here. You don't want to be part of this fight. Here's a safe haven. We're not gonna harass you. Get out.
Yeah.
And their latest thing, and the liberal media is all over them for this too, is their warning. Say, hey, we got 800 miles or 800 kilometers of tunnels.
We're going to flood them.
We don't know how much more there is, but we're going to flood them.
Yep.
And they spent weeks setting up these gigantic pumps. Each pump can pump like 32,000 gallons per hour,
Yep.
some insane number, and they've put up 7 or 8 of them, and they're just going to start flooding these tunnels. And they've warned them, if you're in the tunnel, get out.
Yeah. Maybe they can't, though. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's the other part of it, and it's the other thing. Like
the whole point is to disable that as a means of continuing the war. Like, we're going to take the tunnels out of the war.
Right.
So without explosives, without bringing down whatever infrastructure is above the tunnel, we're going to flood it. But it's not as though they're doing it without warning. It's not,
Yeah, I don't know there's too many armies that would warn you ahead of time.
Not many.
Just think of Pearl Harbor. I mean, you can go back centuries. It's looking like Rome in a lot of ways. What went on in Rome history, if you look back far enough. I mean, first of all, the Rome's morality went down the tubes, and then all kinds of things happened.
It really is a cycle. I don't know who said it, but it was hard times make good men make easy times, and easy times make poor men. Right? It's because we get complacent.
Yeah.
Right? And so the Roman Empire got to the point where it was all about luxury and self-pleasing and me, all of that business.
Self-justification.
And we've seen it a thousand times. It's also what happened in the French Revolution. I actually found an incident. It was a newspaper article in the French Revolution where they started playing games with language, with the he's and the she's and the whole transvestite thing. That was a thing during the French Revolution. We're talking hundreds of years ago, right? And it's not like we haven't seen this before, but nobody cares to look back in history and see what happens when society starts being politically correct and just trying to please everybody. You can't do that. You have to have a set of rules, and those rules,
Yeah, I mean, so on a lighter side, the Olympics are going to be in Paris this year, and they will only serve vegan and vegetarian food. I heard that today. So that's all they're going to have. So that includes the contestants.
We're still going down.
I know.
That's not a positive thing. I read a story today about a restaurant owner in California, or not just California, San Francisco. In 2019, they went all vegan.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All the vegan stores, all the vegan restaurants have been closing down. So he's made the decision, okay, we're going back to meat. Right? They're going back to meat. So we can't cater. Only 1% of the population of the United States is a vegan. Only 1%. You can't run a business thinking that you're going to get rich or even be profitable when your market segment is 1%.
Yeah, it's like them eating bugs for protein, and it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy.
Arby's came out with 100% meat-based carrot.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that
they
true?
did. They did. I saw it today.
100% meat-based carrot.
Yeah, so
That's funny.
I love my vegetables.
It's meat, and it's molded to look just like a carrot. It's got food coloring,
That's so
and
funny.
it uses powdered carrot juice to flavor it.
Gosh.
So if you're a vegan and you want a carrot, you can have it. It tastes just like a carrot. It looks just like a carrot. But isn't that the same argument they give us? Hey, well, this looks like a burger. It tastes like a burger. Well, then just give me a burger.
I'm waiting for
Arby's came out with a 100% meat-based carrot, and they call it a vegetable.
That's funny.
How about meat-based M&Ms?
Yeah.
I could go for that, man. Oh Lord.
Oh, so much
So
absurdity.
Sean, what other things are you up to? You're up to a lot. Obviously, a fiance, a new house. What other things are
Are
you
lumber
doing?
prices coming down?
They are.
Darn.
What about mortgage price? High, right?
Mortgage prices are still high. Lumber prices have been going down all year.
That's good to
Well,
hear.
that's good news.
Yeah, it is. They're not down to what they were like before COVID, but they're not far off.
What about deliveries of that? I mean, there's plenty of lumber in this area. A lot of it comes from Canada, right? And a lot of it comes from guys that have their own sawmill in their backyard, right?
There's some, the supply chain thing hasn't completely squared itself off, but it's not as bad as it was. At least not on my end. I mean, I don't know every area of the market. I mean, grocery prices are still insane, and there's
Sure.
lots of things that are still crazy, and I assume that has something to do with the supply chain, or supposedly it does.
Yeah.
But on our end, lumber, production of lumber, ability to transport it, trains, everything, it's all gone quite smoothly. Of course, we don't get as much, with lumber, it's coming from primarily this continent. and that makes a big difference. So as opposed to like all the shipping containers and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But even the stuff that we sell that's reflected in that has gotten pretty much back to normal, more close to normal lead times for things
Oh,
like
okay.
windows and doors and
Because
stuff.
I know builders had a hard time there for a while, and of course it was.
Yep.
People who signed contracts to have their house built, they were way behind.
Mm-hmm.
I remember a friend of mine just wanted to replace some of the Trex deck they
Yeah,
had, and
yeah.
they couldn't. There was like 6 months out or something,
Yep.
and they lived in Ware, so
Oh. Yep.
they were local. But
We had our house recited a couple of years ago, and so as they take the siding off, there are certain panels that need to be replaced, the plywood panels.
Yeah.
And these are 4x8 plywood panels.
yeah,
Luckily, I only
Plywood.
had to have two replaced before they
put the,
rewrapped and put everything up. But
what was a sheet of plywood?
I think they were charging me like $150.
When
per
was this?
sheet. About 2 years ago, or something like that. It was incredible. Now, I mean, that was including labor to
Yeah.
put it up there, but still, the a 4x8 standard sheet of plywood
Right.
being close to $100.
Yeah.
Raw material.
Yeah,
is-
yeah. It got silly for a while.
It
Yeah.
really did. So who supplies you with most of your wood? Then you said it's
Like
on this-
location?
Yeah, and what do you?
It is kind of all over the place,
Is
but
it?
I would say more than anything, Canada matters a lot, and,
Yeah.
and Maine.
Maine too. Yeah.
Maine
okay.
and Canada are probably the two biggest areas where the lumber actually comes from around here.
Yeah, you know where the paintball place is?
But it comes from down south and everywhere. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
The
Agent
guy
Paintball,
across
yeah.
the guy across the way there.
Yep.
Does he supply you with planks, or is he making that for his personal?
No. So that's what he does is it's pretty distinct from like what we do with
Yeah.
the finished lumber and stuff.
Right.
He makes like raw boards that are unfinished.
Oh, okay. I always see him.
From raw lumber. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard he does a good job over there. I haven't actually been over to
Yeah, I've
really see
seen
any
some.
of it.
I mean, I haven't gone out of my car to see it, but it looks like he's doing a decent job there. He's been there a few years now.
Yeah, I've
he
met him
local,
now.
or-
He is now. No, he moved here, and this is kind of like his sort of retirement plan.
Oh, wow.
His
hobby.
He bought He
Yeah.
bought the field, and now he's.
Wow, that's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
All right. So, one more absurd thing I wanted to talk about. I just love
Time
absurd-
flew by.
Yeah. A Walmart in Colorado.
I know what you're going to say.
2 men went in and robbed the place. And of course, when you rob a convenience or
Walmart.
retail store nowadays, you really don't have to do much. All you got to do is walk in, grab what you want, put it in a cart, and walk out. And everybody is instructed not to touch you, and you
Not
just
to try to
get in your
stop
car
you.
and you leave.
Right.
So these guys were convicted, and they were convicted of felony theft. And in Colorado, felony theft is defined as anything over $2,000. Well, they stole a whole bunch of KitchenAid mixers,
Oh, wow.
which earned them the nickname of the KitchenAid Bandits.
That's awesome.
So the KitchenAid Bandits were convicted of felony theft and
That was for
jail-
two. That was for just 2 mixers.
yeah,
Right?
for jail time coming up, and their lawyer argued
Oh,
that
boy.
they should get a lesser sentence, that it shouldn't be a felony
Okay, why?
because the mixers were on sale,
That's awesome.
and that had you purchased them, they wouldn't have cost $2,000 because
Oh my God! Oh my God!
So they wanted
Now that's
the
funny.
judge to say, "Well, Your Honor, they were on sale," and the judge didn't have nothing to do with it. Said, no, good try, but no.
That's awesome.
But that's what it's come to. That's everybody's entitled.
Well, you take your, take your
Everybody-
calculator with you. When one guy takes his calculator and they figured him out to steal,
Yeah.
to make sure you got to be under $2,000
Yeah.
or it's a felony. So
Yeah. Well, wasn't that the thing? They decriminalized a certain amount of,
Yeah.
of theft in
Yes.
California or
Yeah.
Oregon,
No,
one of the little states.
California.
And so that as long as you were under a certain then they wouldn't
It's
even
not-
prosecute. There was
Right.
one attorney general who said, "I'm not prosecuting any theft under $100." So, you go and
Yeah.
I mean, you can go shopping twice a day for less than $50 and just walk out and you're done, and you know you're not going to get prosecuted. The absurdity of what's going on in this world.
We should have
is
an
getting to me.
absurdity session where we should just
Maybe we should
have people
start
call
one.
in with some absurdities.
Maybe we
you
should
know?
start one. That sounds like a great time.
Yeah,
I think what we'll
that'd be
do
kinda
is
fun.
is we'll
Absurdistan.
We'll do a
Call it Absurdistan.
we'll do it like a 10-minute segment every week on absurdity.
I think that's a good idea.
on
It'd be
where
fun.
this country is going. So,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Sean, I really appreciate you coming back. I love having you every year. I hope you come back every year.
Yeah.
I hope we're still doing this for a few years.
Be nice.
And say hi to everybody. Give Brenda our love.
yeah, please.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, we'll see you
Appreciate it.
guys next week with Pastor Walter